And hello to whoever decides to watch this. This is my playthrough of the Beginner's Guide. So, the Beginner's Guide is turning 10 at the day of upload. And I, a few weeks prior to that, I am, at the time I'm recording this, the actual day I'm recording this, it's my birthday just a couple weeks before that, I'm 31. And I decided to do a bit of a playthrough again of the Beginner's Guide. I first played it a few months after it came out, and then I played it again about a year or two ago, and I was a very, very different person when I played it the second time than the first time, and I thought to play it again now. So I'm not going to be going for your usual kind of Let's Play stuff. I'm going to be quiet for a lot of it, obviously, when any of the narration is happening. It's also going to be a full spoiler playthrough. I would really, really recommend, especially if you're a creative person of any description, doesn't matter what kind of creative field you're in, it doesn't matter if you want to make games, doesn't matter if you want to write books, doesn't matter if you want to paint things, it doesn't matter what you want to do. If you're a creative person, I think this game can be meaningful to you. But I would really, really recommend that you experience it for yourself. I will be doing full spoilers. I'll be talking about things that happen at the end, probably stuff like that, throughout the playthrough. I would really recommend you do not watch this if you haven't already experienced the game for yourself. And if you haven't, and if you don't play games, you don't want to play games, whatever, I would really recommend first watching a no commentary playthrough. Because you should experience it for yourself first. So yeah, that's all I really have to say there. Yeah, that's all. So I'm gonna get into it. This game is very meaningful to me, so it's possible that I could be a bit sad sometimes. So let's just get started.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reedon. I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town, and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made. until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveywreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Warning. Whisper machine active. Shift destruction imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
So immediately I just want to say, while there's a lull and he's not speaking, the idea obviously that this is actually a selection of games by a different person and not Davey Wreden is obviously, I would say not true. There was a critic who thought that this was actually stolen work, which is just not the case. It is obviously a creative way of exploring your own ideas, and as I said, it's like spoilers for later segments because, you know, so please, spoilers. As this is also, you know, related to later points in the narrative, these games are a representation of Wreden's own understanding of himself as a creator, and how he conceptualizes also interpretation of his own work. Like, how does the artist interpret their own work? Like, right, because usually when you talk about reception, you're talking about how does the audience react to the artwork. But once an artwork is released, the creator doesn't actually have power over their own creation anymore. They don't get to say what it means, but they can have their own interpretation of what it means, and also as time goes on, their interpretation of themselves might alter, might shift, might change, because, well, you're not the same person who created it anymore. Your interpretations of your own work might change. Like, the person who created a creative work stops existing the moment that creative work is actually no longer being worked on when it is done. That the person no longer exists because they are changing constantly, just like all of us. And so you can't look at your own work in the sense of acting as if it is completely yours, because once it touches an audience, it's not yours anymore, and at that point you essentially become part of the audience. Yeah, just a point worth making, I think.
Security call breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin ship evacuation.
Now that's also a very interesting point, right? Talk about a piece of art for what it is rather than what, like, it could have been. Which I think is definitely an interpretation. I do think that you can still argue for what something is or isn't, Like, that's essentially what criticism is, right? You're arguing for what something could have been rather than what it actually is. Of course, criticism does also respond to what the thing actually is, but it's essentially saying what could have been done differently to make it better, or worse, or something of that description, which is an interesting thing. This is also a thing I'll just say, a lot of creatives tend to have this animosity towards critics, which I really don't think that you should have, because you should instead see criticism as a chance for improvement of the continuation of your art. I remember seeing a thing that James Gunn, actually, who I like James Gunn's work, but James Gunn, he criticized the fact that he was receiving criticism and saying that, well, what is really the point of like a critic if the movie is already released, you know? But that is a very, 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 very narrow-minded viewpoint, because unless your movie is going to be the last movie ever made and there will never be any more by anyone else, including yourself, then maybe I would say it's pointless to critique something. But if you can learn something from a piece of art to improve it or anything like that, then critique is worthwhile. And so, yeah, that is just something I feel is worth noting. Like, as you do get obviously very mean critics, but as a creative, you shouldn't see a critic as your enemy. You should actually see them as someone who can assist you in creating the best possible work next time. Like, and it doesn't matter if you failed in one particular instance, because failing now just means that you can use your failures to be better next time. So, yeah.
I love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
That's just cute. That's just a little... It's the kind of stuff where, because it's also shedding the artifice of what it means to be a game. Because it's showing you the behind-the-scenes stuff, which I really like. It's a cool little idea. The same with the gun not reloading, like, you know, I can click it as it doesn't work anymore. It's the same sort of thing.
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
Now that is also a very, very interesting point, where, so he is trying to understand this fictional person's artistic vision. And to understand the artistic vision, he breaks the artistic vision. He, like, yeah, a labyrinth, it's weird, it's silly, but it was the intention. So, does intention really matter when it stands in the way of your art? In a sense, right? Like, how do you know, say for instance, because this is essentially something that would be a difficulty of some kind. So, say if you think about something like a game is a good example. There is something that fundamentally stands in the way of the art, and that is the actual gameplay, right? You have to play the game, you have to fight difficult enemies or whatever to see more of the game, and so the difficulty stands in the way, in air quotes, in the way of the game and the experience and what have you. But that isn't a bad thing, like, that is just what it means for it. And it's the same with, like, say, a book. A book can have language that's harder to understand, and that's part of the difficulty of engaging with it.
Or if you'd really like to solve the labyrinth, you're welcome to do that too.
Okay, that's just cute. But yeah, you see, so he is saying that, yeah, you can, of course, engage with it, but where does the intention, like, what, when you put obstacles in the path of the perceiver, you know, the reader, the player, whatever, how much does that impact the artwork itself?
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Okay, now here's an important thing, which I think also as a creator, like, this is what Davey Wreden is doing in this game with all these little games that he has made. He is trying to tell you, as the artist, how you should interpret his work. That's also obviously the whole conceit of the game, that this fictional creator, Coda, that he is the person, or they're the person, I can't remember if it's a he or whatever, but this person has been creating these games, and Davey Wreden is interpreting them and claiming that his interpretation is the correct interpretation. And how do you determine whose interpretation is correct? And how much of that are you putting onto the creator, and how much are you putting onto other people, and putting onto the game? Like, where does the meaning actually come from in the game?
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the Whisper Machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop the beam. It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Okay, so here's also the thing. He is implying that so he is also altering the game to better fit his understanding and interpretation of another person. He's being like, what happens next with you rising into the ceiling or rising out into space? Like, it has to have been a bug. Right? There's no way he could have thought of that. There's no way that he could have done that. Even though, like, you kill, you die, and then you float up into space, like into heaven. You could see it as an interpretation in that sense. But you can't fathom the idea that this person would have intended something like this to happen. Which obviously, as this is a series of games, well, we presume that Davey Wreden made, he did intend it to happen. So, he's saying it wasn't intentional, but it was intentional, but does intention really matter? And what if when Wreden was making this little game, that was the actual bug that hit him, and he realized that it was even more poignant that way? We can't know, we don't know, and yeah, we just can't know that. So, it is worth keeping these kind of things into account when it comes to artistic creation. Can you really say?
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it, like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
So yeah, he is forcing his own understanding onto this narrative, onto this game.
Yep, in this game you can only walk backwards.
Yeah, that's just I'm pushing forward and nothing happens, just so you can see. You have to go backwards.
So it's a short and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Coda's trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
So yeah, this kind of thing, it's very, I also actually just like these, even independently of the beginner's guide, as a narrative framing device, these little games, these little experiences are interesting in their own right, as little experiences. And so I think that even if these were to be released just on their own as small experiments, they are worth being seen as artistic creations in their own right without the beginner's guide being wrapped around it.
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
So once again, it is him putting his interpretation onto it, which I think is a very valuable thing to do. That, yeah.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting.
Yeah, but as we know, because we played this...
Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Okay,
I wish I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games. He would really only talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
Now that also, I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do? Art is a thing that a lot of people valorize as something special and external to other human experience, when I would say that art is like other human experience. Like, art is a part of us, and art is also not necessarily for an audience. You can make art just for you, for your own understanding, for narrative healing purposes. When you, for instance, write a journal, you are doing an interpretation of yourself. You are turning your own life into a narrative. Even if you're trying to report it accurately, it is a different thing, right? You're turning it into something creative. You're trying to understand yourself through art, and I would say any kind of other more intentional art is the same. And so him trying to put onto Coda that these games only count if, you essentially continue thinking about them, I would say does art a disservice. It acts as if art is something special and unique rather than a way to understand ourselves and others. And yeah, also I just find this particular little game, I love it because of the whole concept of slowing down, which then we'll see that Reedon breaks it again for the sake of his interpretation of the art, which I like.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Here's another example of breaking somebody else's art to create your own. Now, here's also the thing. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with doing that. I don't think there's anything wrong with rewriting art to give it a different meaning. But it then becomes a transformative work based on someone else's work, which is a type of artistic expression as well. Like, think about mods for a game or fan art, fan fiction, stuff like that. That is creation of art by breaking apart somebody else's art for the sake of creating some kind of new art. So I don't think that there's something wrong with him doing this in terms of the story, right? Because it is all actually, well, that's the thing, we don't know how much of it is intentional. That's the point. But breaking it is actually fine, because it is a new way of understanding this concept. But the way that Reedon, obviously with the whole end point of the game, where, I don't even know if you can actually reach if you don't press enter. I think maybe you'd eventually reach, or you'll continue to slow. But yeah, the concept of this game, in an unaltered sense, has quite a beautiful message to it. But when it is broken, it has another message to it, which is bypassing the artist's intention in what you want to do. And yeah, I find it just something interesting. But we're going to bypass now, pushing enter. There we go. All these little game ideas. I love this because
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
yeah,
Coda would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant. He said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
I do love those. The reason I also love them is because of the act of creation. There are a lot of people out there who essentially want to be what you would call like an idea guy, right? Like, oh, I've got this great idea for a book. I've got this great idea for a book. I wish someone should write it. When, like, don't do that. Just write it yourself. Like, you're allowed to do that. This is why I think like AI, like generative AI stuff, is for the most part actually just disappointing, because I feel that rather than trying to create yourself and risking failure, risking doing a bad job and not doing the thing as well as it, the image of it is in your head, you're allowing a machine to do it for you. You're just putting the act of creation onto another person, and that's not a good thing. That's I don't know. There's just something about that I feel is a terrible thing, because you should be trying to create it yourself. Even if you fail, there's nothing wrong with failing. Like, being a creative person in any sense is full of failure. You will fail. You will write stories that are bad. You will compose music that is terrible. You will paint something poorly. But the more of those mistakes you make, the less of those mistakes you make in future, and you will get better. But you will still always fail late into life. Like, it will continue to happen, and that's actually fine. But yeah. That's but yeah, so you shouldn't just be an idea guy. But that is why I like that last little game with all the little game ideas, because it's like they have all these ideas, but there's no way you have enough time to create them, and so you turn the act of just having the idea into a different game, so you don't have to actually make all of those ideas, because you don't want to make all of those ideas, even though as a creative you have so many ideas that you can never possibly use all of them.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it. Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're going to see it a lot.
These are important for the narrative purpose, but yeah. Let's go into here.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve a puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
This is also a beautiful example, right? Because we have this, when we press enter, we're going to see all the other stuff, which you could see as a metaphor for what is hiding under the surface of what is created. But once again, you as a creator don't necessarily show everything to your audience, and there's nothing wrong with that. And also, of course, sometimes things can be just for you. Like the idea in this game is that Coda was making these games entirely for himself, and that it was actually kind of a mistake for him to show them to Davey Wreden at all, because he then went and took them and broke them to be like, no, this is what makes them interesting. And they're interesting when they're broken. They're not interesting when they are as they are. But yeah, when you break it, you see this.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
So it's a very reductive, his understanding of these games. Yeah, they're very, very reductive understandings, which also works because a lot of people have very reductive understandings of the art that they consume, and they want to try to understand it in human concepts and human terms, and that's what Davey Wreden is trying to do, or at least his character is trying to do, which can be seen as futile.
Aha! So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in, some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
So that's also a thing, implying greater understanding of the artist. I also just love this image. It's implying greater understanding of the artist through what they create, assuming that... So let me just say, as a writer, right? Sometimes you write something, a novel, and you actually don't have this sort of overarching idea necessarily of certain themes or ideas, and then when you go back and do your editing, when you're doing your editing, you reinforce certain ideas and themes that you didn't necessarily think of at first, but they came through naturally as you were writing it. So the idea that Coda definitely had these interconnected ideas when he was creating these implies a level of understanding of the self that I think actually most people don't necessarily have. And so claiming that these games must be, or have always been related to each other, is implying possibly more on this person than is fair. But, you know,
let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development. To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well.
So that is just like...
The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Now, all of that is true, right? That engines have things that they're good at and bad at and everything like that. And it can be difficult to learn a new engine, but you can also make engines do things that they're not necessarily intended to do. And so you can still say that there was intentionality behind choosing to use a certain engine and to use it in a specific way. So I would also say Rieden's, or the character of Rieden's sort of statements there minimize the artistic expression, because they're sort of saying, oh, the only reason he made these is because of, because of the engine. It's the only reason he made it the way he did. Which is not true. Also, I would play a platformer like this. It's really, really soothing. Like, there's no fall damage or whatever, so it's just kind of soothing. And I think you could make a game. I think you could make an actual game like this that's just sort of like a Zen-like, Yep. I think you could make a game like this as just sort of a Zen-like experience. And it would be enjoyable for what it is. But yeah, even though it's kind of ultimately, because Source is the Half-Life 2 engine, and so, it has that kind of aesthetic to it, brutalist sort of stuff here, but I think that that interesting things were able to be done with the architecture to make it look just a bit more, I don't know, pretty. It's more creative. Pretty isn't really the right word. You can't go either way, which means you have to go to prison.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that.
So, also, of course, the thing is that if we're paying attention to artist intention, there's a reason that it stays closed for an hour. There is a reason. Like, you won't understand fully the intention of the creator if you decide to leave after less than an hour. But of course we are going to leave less than an hour because that is the intention, well, you could say the intention of the beginner's guide versus the intention of the fictional representation of this game.
This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. Whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
See, that's also the thing. You are putting your intention onto someone else. Like, let's just say, actually, this is a great example of the concept of a walking simulator. Because, like, the beginner's guide is one of those, and so is the Stanley Parable, which is Rieden's other game, or other big game. First big game. And there are people who say that a walking simulator is not a real game. It doesn't have, like, enemies. It doesn't have things to do in that sense. But who are you to say what is and isn't a game? Like, or at least a narrative, interactive, experiment. Who are you to say that it is or isn't a certain thing? Like, it's not up to you. Art is more than that. Art is more than your individual interpretation of what should or shouldn't be.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Coda is going to return to it over and over. but I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly. Here, Coda begins using a kind of dialogue system that he fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
I should probably read these. Yeah, that's all above. You've been there. This is important. Did you have to get through a puzzle with 2 doors and 2 switches? Yes, I did. That was literally the last thing I did before I came here. Again, perfect. Now please tell us how you solved it. Tell us a solution. Tell us how to get to the other side. You can say, I don't remember. I didn't solve it. Someone else let me in. Trust me, we don't want to go there. I want to say that one. Oh, no, I do. We do. We need to get out there. Do you understand? It's the most important thing in the world. We have to escape this prison. There must be an ending. I promise you, there is nothing I want more. And it ends. It's just sort of philosophical musings, but why were those the philosophical musings of this Coda character? Like, why were they doing that? And why were they presenting us with even more of them? How did you get here? Was there a puzzle you had to pass through? I say, no, I've been here this whole time. I suggest you go and see the puzzle sometime. It's not meant to be solved, but you can sit in the blank space in the middle. What happens if I solve it? Not sure, but if I have any suspicion, what you find won't be worth what it takes to get there. You'll have another... Okay, for some reason my brain was on our way through again.
And so we make one last descent down to the final floor of the level.
This is not related to like the game really itself, but I always do love when you have like a dark tunnel like this which then emerges into something else. I like it.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason Coda fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Yeah, from knowing the end of the game, he put the lampposts in, which means that he is telling Coda how he should be thinking. All the notes being left behind by other players, Dark Souls style. Not gonna go yet. But yeah, his insertion of the lampposts is essentially in clear defiance of the intention of another person, because he is altering it to suit his own understanding, which once again I don't think is actually a bad thing. Like, I don't believe in copyright. Like, I believe that artistic works should be freely accessible and changeable to all. Like, you can create your own art from somebody else's art. Like, that's what total conversion mods are of games, isn't it? You're using like a pre-existing game as a template onto which you can put your own thing. But yeah, I really like this little game. It's cute.
So first off, I'm sure you can deduce this, but this game is not connected to the internet. all of the notes that you're going to see have been written by Coda. This was actually the first game of his that I ever played. This was shortly after I met him at a weekend game jam in Sacramento, where I grew up. I saw him working on this very level, and it was just so different from anything that anyone else was doing. So right away I was like, I have to be friends with this person. In retrospect, I think I was probably a bit too pushy, trying to get his attention. I was over-enthusiastic. But he was very gracious about it and very patient with me. And I cooled off eventually. Oh, feel free to skip over any of these notes if they're not doing anything for you. Nothing extra is going to happen if you read all of them. Either way, to me they convey a sense of loneliness. I see this person who's filled with thoughts and feelings and beliefs and has no way to express them except as scattered and unheard voices in a game that wasn't meant to be played.
So yeah, I
But it's
love
ironic,
all of
isn't
this.
it, that in playing this game and seeing how alone Coda often felt, that we get to know him better and actually kind of connect with him. And I have to be honest with you, this idea is really seductive to me. That I could just play someone's game and see the voices in their head and get to know them better and have to do less of the messy in-person socializing. I could just get to know you through your work. I think this is why I always liked Coda's games so much, is because it felt like they let me have that connection. I felt as though he was inviting me personally into his world. And then I feel less lonely too.
That is a major aspect of the beginner's guide. It from my perspective, is also, of course, that Reedon, he struggled with having to deal with all the people after the Stanley Parable, like fans essentially, who he's in the sense acting like a fan of Coda, putting onto Coda what he feels in himself. He is, and this idea, this implication, right, that this implication that you can understand someone better through their work, which I don't think is unfounded. I do think that your creative work says something about who you are as a person. I think that that is true. But, that being said, the voice in a text is not the same as the voice of the person. You can be dishonest, or of course creative, you know. You don't have to be expressing yourself accurately in a piece of artistic work. You don't have to do that, because you don't owe it to anybody, essentially, to you don't owe it to anybody to present your true self. And even then, an understanding of yourself isn't necessarily the true self. It is just what you perceive as being the true self at a particular point in time, or in a particular way. Like, it's not true in that kind of a sense. And also the idea that this game conveys a sense of loneliness can be true, but I don't think it has to be. And I think it's... We're not going to look at all these nodes. I do kind of like this artwork here, but, you know, it doesn't have to be what some people... I want to go and look at it. I don't have to, obviously. But that's also the idea that, oh, you don't have to look at all of these nodes, or the idea that you do have to look at all these nodes, are both not true, and true at the same time. Because it's like, what actually was the intention? Was the intention that it was so overwhelming, like the number was so many that there's no way you would look at all of them? Which might be the case. Also, you don't have to follow the path, which I also like. It's the idea that, you know, this is actually quite a large space that you can see a lot of effort was put into, but you don't actually have to follow all of it. And writing up all of these, thinking of all of these, was also effort, you know? But, yeah, The idea that there
At the
is
end
a
of this level,
specific-
we're going to see the puzzle again. And here, I'll tell you what I think the puzzle means. Each of these games represents an idea that was on Coda's mind at the time that he was making it. And the puzzle is a way of closing the door on a previous chapter of his life before moving on to the next one.
Just realized I can't fall down here. I just want to quickly check if I can fall down in the other room. Maybe I can't. Because in some of the places like that platforming one, you can try and do the platforming section yourself, or you can just fall. It's fine. I just want to see here. But if I can't fall down here... Oh, I can't. Okay, so I have to go all the way down. Well, then the idea that I would be able to have my complete choice here. Also, of course, it could be something that Reedon had altered. We don't know. We can't know. Doesn't really matter either way. But yeah, I do also just like, this is not to do with any of this kind of more philosophical chat, but I do just like the visual design of a lot of this kind of stuff. It's sort of this untextured, you know...
In each of his games, after exploring a theme that, he might find difficult, Coda can then place this puzzle that he knows has a reliable solution, he understands exactly how it works, and so it gives him a simple mechanism for moving on.
See, that's also like saying that...
And because there's this dark area between the doors, a space between spaces, before you move on, you get to pause. Just for a moment, a few seconds to reflect on and let go of the events that led you here. To step back and connect the pieces together. To grasp at that elusive bigger picture.
I see all of that is placing on someone else. Like, why did that exist? Why was that the way it was? I also love this room with the typewriters.
Okay, this one is tough. It's gonna kinda just spin its own wheels for a few minutes. Hang with it.
Quite a pretty environment. Oh, I love this. Like, that's also the thing, like, a lot of these environments I do actually also find quite visually interesting, which is nice.
See, like, this is it. The whole game. And there's nothing that's particularly interesting about it. You just walk to the end of a hallway. Except, for some reason, Coda gets really fixated on this prison that has all of this modern furniture. And I don't know why, but he decides he needs to revisit this prison. He's gonna start over, use the same assets, turn it into something else. Okay, cool. Here's version 2.
Okay, so what furniture ought to go? Let's say TV with surround sound. What now? It should be on the 10 stoves. Doesn't matter what I say, it'll still be the same stuff. Let's light up the room. Skylight, we'll put live Tesla coils. Table, we need a table. Who exactly are you? Where exactly are you doing this from?
There's a bit more to this one, but still it's not really communicating anything. It's kind of just weird for weirdness' sake.
And that is also very interesting.
So okay, he throws it out and starts over. This time he comes at the prison idea from a different direction.
You don't get to say what isn't interesting or what is interesting of somebody else's work in that sense of sort of saying, this isn't interesting. If you're creating art for yourself, it's interesting for you. Or not interesting, you don't actually know. Click on the table. Go to the photo frame. Floral lamp. Turn it back on. Left side sofa, move it a little bit. Oh. Touch the shelves. In the real prison, the escape will now open. Return to the start, taken back to your prison.
And of course, now the table is gone and you can't begin the chain of events to escape. Here's a version where there are no bars, but you can't actually get to the well. And then a version where the inside of the prison is the outside and the outside is the inside. Let me just blink you real quick through a few more of these. I mean, he really unloaded on this prison idea. There's nearly a dozen of them. Personally, I think it's awful to watch this, to see a person basically unraveling through their work. And for what? Like, at what point do you just go, maybe there are game ideas other than this prison that I could be working on? But Coda doesn't have that voice telling you to stop, that particular mechanism of defense against yourself. Without it, you just spiral. And so he keeps going and going and going and going and going, and then he hits on something. And he likes it. And that's it. He's done. He stops making prisons. This is the very last version of the prison game that he created, and the reason I think it works is that the prison is not actually in it.
Once again, this is him putting onto somebody else. Like, you'll see this all the time, right? There's a book that's quite dark or sad or something like that, and you put onto the author that they must be unhappy if they could create this. There must be something wrong, right? If something has events similar to real world or something like that, something that's your real life, then there must be something wrong. Which is not necessary. It could be the case, but it's not necessarily the case, and it's not really up to you to say what somebody else felt. And at like that sense of him cycling through all these prison ideas and saying, well, it's really sad to see him do this, but you'd be like, well, he was trying to figure out some kind of artistic expression. You don't really get to say that it's sad that he felt that way. It's, yeah. It's not up to you to be the sole arbiter of someone's artistic expression. It's not even up to them. It's not up to anybody. It's just, yeah. Hello. Who is this? It's me. I'm you from after you escaped prison. You're me? Huh. So you were trapped in this prison too? Yes, I was in the furniture maze.
It's a conversation. And so this is what Coda wants, is to be able to talk to someone, to share what's on his mind, and to get some good advice from someone who knows. But the irony is that even in this scenario, you're still talking to yourself. You know, all of these games so far are Coda talking to himself.
That idea as well, that, oh, it's just Coda talking to himself. If he showed them to another person, if he showed them to Davey Reed, and then it's not actually him just talking to himself, it's him also talking to somebody else. It's conveying something. Art is a type of conversation as well. It's not as efficient as standard communication, because artistic interpretation can alter. But it is a kind of conversation. You can get to understand someone in a certain sense through their art. Like, earlier I said you can't understand someone completely, but no, you can't understand someone completely through what their art is. but you can understand an aspect of them. But it's an aspect. You can't understand the entire person. Yeah, I'm not really paying attention because these also don't. It doesn't change the trajectory of the game, whatever you say. So I am just responding, which of course is also me saying what doesn't really matter what I say. But in the sense of this video and what I'm doing, it doesn't. So I'm just choosing random ones. It doesn't matter in that sense. But I would say it definitely does matter for what it's trying to do. It's trying to be an understanding of something.
I can see why he considers this a fitting conclusion to the prison games. After all of the obsession and frustration, just to be told by someone you can trust that things are going to be okay. Wouldn't that be nice?
That's also you putting onto someone else and saying what you feel they should feel about the thing.
So what would it look like if Coda wanted to make a game about talking to someone other than himself?
Yeah, once again, that is him putting it onto another person, although I do, just in terms of pure, like, visual
to me,
design.
This environment is meant to represent Coda's puzzle, with the two doors on either side and a dark transitional space between.
Yeah, as I was saying, I consider this to be like one of the prettiest ones. I just find this to be a very pretty visual aesthetic, but also implying that this is the same as the puzzle is you putting it onto someone else. And you'll see that with ideas like, say, like the monomyth and stuff like that, of just trying to boil narrative down to a few basic components, to turn art into something reductive, I think is not a great thing. You know? I'm glad as heck you showed up. Thought I might have to clean this entire house by myself. Everyone knows lonesome hands make lousy homes. Don't worry about me, a place this nice, I'm glad to stay
You'll
here all
notice
night.
that the quality of the art is a step up from previous games, including this new and improved chat system, which he started using from this point on. From here on out, he begins putting much more effort into the visual polish of his work, and this particular game took 2 months to create as a result.
So could I please clear the table? Now this also, I think, an actual game like this, some people probably just love, because it's just doing busy work. You know, go to the bedroom and make the bed. Like, I don't know, this kind of busy work, a lot of people will find it probably quite zen, which I can understand. Straighten the rug. Do you enjoy being a house cleaner? Well, don't enjoy it as much as I need it. When I'm working, I feel kind of calm that rests in the pit of my ribcage. My soul just can't be soothed any other way, it seems. Which I guess is all that matters. Oh, that entirely the couch. Would you straighten the pillows on the sofa? So that's also the kind of calm that comes with just cleaning is also just a thing. And I feel like that is something similar to here. Okay, he wants to share an incredibly cheesy insight. Make it especially cheesy. No. No, it was stupid, sorry, never mind. Hey, the dishes need to be washed. Why don't you come do that? Just going around doing all these, it is quite zen. Last I checked, the tub needed a cleaning. How about you scrub it down? No need to be perfect, we're all human. Books scattered on the floor in the bedroom. Perfect. Clear the dishes off the table.
After the intense set of prison games, this house cleaning level almost feels like cleansing. It's the moment after a particularly difficult or traumatic experience where you just need to let it sit and digest inside of you, and eventually cohere into something meaningful.
Smooth out the rug.
I know that
bedroom.
Coda really liked this game. Of all of his work, actually, this was the only one that he called me up to ask me to come over and look at it. This was during a period of a few months where he was, like, grossly happy all the time. Just walked around with a constant smile on his face.
I said I had a really cheesy thought, I was going to say that it occurs to me that one's house is a lot like one's soul. Take care of it and it takes care of you. Huh. Don't know why I felt so weird about saying that. I get it. It's a weird thing. But there's a bit of truth in it, no? Anyway. So, housekeeping. Let's keep doing this. Books. Would you please clean up the books? Now, I also see this external to Reedon's interpretation, or his fictive representation, interpretation, is that it's a way to keep clear of your problems. Just do the work. You don't have to, you know. I can't just keep doing things.
I'm glad he found some peace.
Like, I like... I don't know. It's nice.
Of course, it can't last. The music stops, your companion is gone, it's time to leave. The door at the top of the hill is now open as well. Again, you can't stay in the dark space for too long. You just can't. You have to keep moving. It's how you stay alive.
So now we're leaving. That abruptly.
Which is the whole point of the puzzle doors, right? That sooner or later you have to pick up and move. I really thought that was the point of it.
That's also where we see the beginning of the cracks in the narrative of this game.
This one gets a bit goofy.
Why did you come here today? Was it to improve your life? Was it to get a better job? Was it to make your relationships more meaningful? No. You came here to become perfect. This workshop is going to teach you how to be perfect. I want your friends, people in your life to look at you and think, wow, this person is a better human being than I am. Right now, who do you think about that way in your own life? Who do you know who is so well developed as a person that they make you feel disgusted with yourself compared to whom you feel useless, selfish, ungrateful? I intend to make you into that person. Perfection is within your grasp. The question is not how we do it, but how do we do it effortlessly? This is easy. It is so easy. It is so easy.
About halfway through the game, the
Being perfect
perspective
is
shifts.
effortless. How do I achieve it with no effort? There's only one option.
And you play as the teacher. And suddenly, you discover that your teacher is just as bigoted and afraid as you are. Oh, and also you can move around the classroom now.
Each of the other options, it's like, do you understand you won't be happy until you love me? This is for you, or you, I'm developing a cyst, but the only thing you can say is seek out only one thing, which is the simplest, easiest, simplest path forward. There is no truth, there is no path. Do what is easiest. And it's also like, the ones you can't say are things like, what if I'm not a good teacher? Nothing, no one.
I felt pretty hard for this one.
Perfection.
I feel like it's one of the most relatable experiences that you can have. To assume that some other person is perfect and totally fulfilled in every way, and completely miss all of the little flaws that make them painfully human. I think about this game a lot these days.
That's also the thing. That is certainly an interpretation, but you could also just say that it was
This one took a lot longer
funsies.
than all the others for Coda to make. It was 4 months between this and the last one. That's twice as long as it took him to make any other game before this, and it's not like it's particularly complex, so I remember I found that a little strange at the time.
Performance is beginning. Starts out leaning against this wall. Good, stay right there. Coming across the room in this chair is a professional photographer of animals. It's your dream to photograph animals professionally. This is your one chance to learn something from her, to gain something, to succeed. Go to her, say something to her. Hello? Hello, that's it? That's not a conversation. You need to actually converse with her. Be a human being. Do it again. So the third option, here are all my hopes and dreams, is I think a painful thing that people like Reedon experienced after creating the Stanley Parable, and then had all these people telling him everything about themselves, and so I think that can be seen as what's happening here. I'm completely missing the tone. I was reserved, but I knew what I wanted. I was confident for some reason. It was just that one moment, but I was confident. Maybe it's that you need to better feel the setting. There were a lot of people around us. I'll give you some props to work with. These cones of people. They represent the people nearby who bounce you away when you come near them. I want to bounce between these two for fun. Oh no, I want to bounce between them. Talk to her again. You must have worked really hard to get where you are. You're messing it all up again. You'll freak her out if the conversation gets that personal that quickly. You realize how important this was for her? It was for me? I'll never get another opportunity like this. Everything was riding on this. Yeah. That's... yeah. Closes behind you.
The game ends with this eerie premonition of what's going to happen next in Coda's life. The solution to social anxiety, to fears of having to perform and having to chase success, the answer for Coda is to withdraw, to hide himself away. Which is what leads to scenarios like the stairs that slowed you down several games ago, where it just becomes harder and harder to access Coda's inner landscape because he keeps retreating. He just keeps backing away from possible connections to anyone other than himself. And to be honest, I didn't consider it very healthy when I first played this game. You know, it looked to me like he was trying to justify the idea of just disconnecting yourself from the world. And that wasn't what I wanted for him or for his games. Because I feel like a lot of his games are inviting me to connect with this person, to bring him closer. But what can you do? After this, Coda went off and took another 5 months to make a new game.
So once again, it is the putting of the self onto someone else, right? You have a specific artistic interpretation of this product, and you think that you get to say what the person means by it. It's very presumptuous of you to do that with art. Alright, so hell. Yeah, you're supposed to close your eyes. But obviously, we have our eyes open. Because... and also there are visual representations. So it can't be entirely that. Although there's like, I think it's a door coming for us. Is it a door? Either way, game ends.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
There is a solution. You have to go and talk to the truth. And it's obviously a harsh truth connected with yourself, which once again has a lamppost associated with it. I can't keep making these. Yep, that's it. That's the truth. It's over.
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way.
Yeah, this is like a painful thing, what you do to others, because obviously this is what, from knowing the end of the game, what happens. This is probably because of Davey Wreden doing this, or the character of Davey Wreden doing this to Coda, putting on him, you know, the options. I haven't been honest. I can't figure out how to say the thing. I thought it was going to be easy. You know, you're doing it, it's working. It's feelings. I'm alone. I'm stuck in it. I have to work harder. I think it also just, it's the kind of thing that you can understand as a creative person, of feeling difficulty.
His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
Yeah, that's also you putting it on someone else. You know, saying that, oh, they trying to interpret the person from trying to interpret the person from the art that is created. And also, of course, in this particular sense, in this particular game, you can see the character of Coda is trying to live up to the expectations that Davey Wreden has placed on him, which I think is something that is understandable as a creative person, that there are certain expectations you have on you, even if you're not successful. You know, like me, I'm not successful. And yet I feel these expectations that I have to create something good and meaningful. Yeah. I also find this little game quite beautiful. Where does this island come from? It's been such a long time since I talked to anyone. What's wrong? You look lost. I'm completely out of ideas. When I try to create, I feel empty. I have nothing left to give to my work. Yeah. When? Because that's also a thing that when creative work becomes work, it can drain it and make it feel terrible. It is just a thing that happened. It was a machine that kept me going and it stopped. I'm trying to find this engine that used to protect me. It needs to start again. Go at the first one. This, I think, is also an understanding that a lot of creative people can probably understand, who have struggled with creating at some point. I need to see it to know why it stopped. Yeah.
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet, still, he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
Yeah, Sorry, I'm also personally struggling with some of these exact things right now. So.
Because from my perspective at the time, and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
You have to actually say how to do the puzzle. Push the switch here.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
Yeah, trust me, he'll see. You have to say that your work is fun and easy. You have to say that game development is simple and joyous and that you love it 100% of the time. This is all about artistic creation. The idea that it's always good, it's always great. Yeah. Why do I feel so awful when I lied about it? Don't worry about it, just keep talking. Keep saying that creation is easy. When I make games, I feel energized. Yep.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering.
Yeah, the second one here, just never stop creating and you'll never feel bad. That's, yep.
This is someone I really cared about. And I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me.
Pain breezes effortlessly off me. Any sacrifices made for my work are worth it 100% of the time. It always pays off eventually.
I don't know.
Keep going.
This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else
There's
to
no shame,
explain
no fear, no guilt.
I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
The end. Well, your creativity can also be a prison. Yeah. No, I can't go back. Oh, I just had to walk up to it.
But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
Okay. I intend to be quick, quiet, or brutal. Let's go with brutal. The press is here, putting all of the attention onto the creative process. Machine.
And of course,
Stopped.
it's the machine.
Your work was keeping us alive. There's people out there, can you imagine what pain you put them through? It was only because of your creations that any of us could make it through every day. Yeah. This is what happens now. You need to go to the people out there and apologize to them. You have to admit to the people that you allowed them to suffer. You've been so alone. Carefully. I know how to hurt you. Yeah. That drive inside us to create. Yeah. We'll speak to them for you. Let's go speak to the press. My followers, my friends, my friends. It falls me to deliver bad news. The machine will not apologize to us. Or, yeah, I'm gonna go. The machine refuses to admit that it deliberately hurt us. It's not important. We are stronger than it thinks we are. We will find a way to live without it. We do not need its games. Go with that one. We don't need what it creates for us. Let us pay it retribution. Let us show it we are not failures. Follow me, we will destroy the machine. Follow me, we will destroy everything that the machine has created. Nice big auditorium. Huh. It's quite a beautiful visual, I will say. Coda, I'll make sure your work dies here. Coda, I'll make sure you are known forever. Huh, I'll make sure your work dies here.
So
that what
now
you've
the
been
work is
scared of?
becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work?
Destroying everything. That's also one of the most painful things about this sort of narrative. Sometimes you feel that people's work has meaning, but they refuse
So I started
to
showing
see it.
Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
Yeah. I'll say it's a massive violation to show someone's work to other people without their permission.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like Like, I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy. So beautifully, beautifully happy.
Yeah.
So anyway, Coda finishes this game, and then really he just kind of takes off for a while. So this is June of 2011, and I didn't hear anything from him for several weeks, I guess. And so out of nowhere, one day I get an email, and it's got a private link to a new game of Coda's. This one is called The Tower, and to my knowledge, it's the last game that Coda ever made. So let's take a look.
Yeah. The final game, which is, to me, also quite painful. Be honest. Every time I played this, I've only played it twice. I played it, as I said, a couple months after it came out, and I played it like a year or two ago. And I know this game has made me cry because I feel a lot of what it's talking about, and yeah. So, and it's weird how I still feel that way, even though.
And this is where I have trouble saying anything meaningful about Coda's work. Because more than anything else, The Tower just feels distant. It feels like it's trying to distance itself from the world. It's a very cold game.
Yeah. I don't know. It's. I think a game like experience like this can have an impact on you, especially as a creative.
This room actually has a maze in it. Except that all the walls of the maze are invisible. And then every time you touch one of the walls, there's this awful flashing and noise, so the experience is really miserable. The game goes beyond not being meant to be played, it actually seems to despise the player for trying to play it at all. But I do want to show you the rest of the levels, so when you're ready to continue, press enter and I'll put a bridge over the maze.
So once again, and this particular, game, this little game, is a message directly to Davey Wreden. That's the idea. And even here, he is altering it. And of course, this is also bringing up like that first maze in that sci-fi little game thing where there was a maze which he just bypassed. Because there's no. Because that's also the thing. Like, there is a lack of respect for the game, for the story, for the
It's
art.
not like this is the first game that's needed some modification to be playable. Like the house cleaning game. That one used to actually loop the cleaning chores and you just cleaned a house forever. I had to cut it off so that you could exit the house and the game would actually end. But that game had an idea that it was actually trying to communicate. What's the deeper idea behind the invisible maze?
So that's actually also a great sort of thing to talk about there, is that the house cleaning game was supposed to just go on and on and on and on and on and never stop. And there wasn't supposed to be an ending because we have this idea that an ending gives meaning to a story. And I mean, I feel that way, right? Like, I don't watch soap operas. I don't watch soap operas because there's no ending. There's no meaning in that sense. It doesn't have a conclusion. But that's not like true, because think of like the slice of life genre. It doesn't really have a point. It doesn't actually have like a definitive beginning or end point, and that's actually fine. It's allowed to be that way. Art doesn't have to fit into someone's conceptualization of what art is, regardless of what anyone says. You don't get to be the arbiter of what art is just because of your perspectives.
The only way past this challenge is to randomly guess the 6-digit code. Like the Invisible Maze, it's frustrating to me, because it's the opposite of everything else that Coda has made. It doesn't encourage thought or engagement. It doesn't ask anything of me, except a lot of my time. If I could have reached him during this time, then maybe I could have asked him, but I couldn't. I still don't really understand why this is here. I'll put the code on the ground for you here, though, so that we can move on.
Yep, more altering in a disrespectful sense to have your meaning, to be able to see the resolution, because he wants the ending, even though the ending isn't. And that's also the thing, like the ending of this little game, not of the beginner's guide, but of this particular little game, is not a good ending for Davey Whedon. So he desperately wants to see the ending, to the point where he's willing to break it to see the ending, even though he shouldn't really want to. And that's painful. But yeah. It is quite a beautiful little thing.
The switch to open this door is actually on the other side of the door, meaning that it's literally impossible to solve from this side. So even if you somehow brute forced your way through the first 2 challenges and you got to this point, there's actually just no way to progress. And it's scary for me, the idea of Coda cutting himself off entirely, just saying, that's it, that's the end of the conversation, not giving me any way to fix the problem. I feel like a failure, I guess, when I can't fix the problem. But I can open this door for you, so let me do that.
So yeah, this is once again him putting his own feelings onto it.
Was I a failure for not understanding this game? I mean, I don't know why I would be. It's not like everything needs to have a solution, but I feel it somehow. I feel like I failed, and I don't understand why. I remember, it's June of 2011. I'm playing this for the very first time, and as I'm playing, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know this person. I have no idea who this person is. It wasn't the guy I knew, it wasn't my friend. I had come to so many conclusions from looking at all of his work up to this point, and then suddenly none of them... I had been trying to, though. That was the thing. For years I was trying to get to know him, to understand who he actually was and what he stood for. I asked him so many times to please just tell me what his games mean to him. I asked him please to tell me what the 3 dots mean. And he wouldn't.
Yeah, that's... What is meaning? Meaning is a difficult concept.
I just felt so strongly that if I could have connected with him, that if I could have somehow made his work my own, that I would finally be once and for all happy. It was that I needed to see myself in someone else. I needed to be someone other than me. But he stopped and left, and it felt somehow like I had failed.
You shouldn't put too much of yourself into another person. And especially when it comes to artistic creation, people assume that if they relate to something, that they understand the person behind it, rather than relating to the work itself. They think they relate to the person rather than the work, and I think that's a dangerous thing to get caught up in, because it can hurt when reality sets in and you discover that that's not the case. Like he did.
I'm the reason that you stopped making games, aren't I? It's because of what I did. I poisoned it for you.
So yeah, dear Davey, thank you for your interest in my games. I need to ask you to not to speak to me anymore. So yeah, other people can poison your art. They can take it away from you.
I don't think I ever told you this, but when I took your work and I was showing it to people, it actually felt... it felt as though I were responsible for something important and valuable.
I wonder at times whether you think I'm making these games for you. And that's the thing, like, are you creating your art for other people, or is it actually for you? Who is it for? If you never show it to anybody, is it for you, or is it for an imagined audience? If you do release it, is it for those people?
And the people who played them, they treated me like I was important. They really listened and cared about what I had to say. Even though I was showing your work, I felt good about myself. Finally. For a moment, while I had that, I liked myself.
Yeah, each of these are extremely painful. You've so affected my personal space that it's possible I did begin to plant solutions in my work somewhere hidden between games. Like, maybe you did actually affect me to the point where I changed how I make games because of you. It's your fault. If there's an answer or meaning, would it make you any happier? Would you stop taking my games and showing them to people against my wishes? Giving them something that is not yours to give, violating the one boundary that keeps me safe? Would you stop changing my games? Stop adding lampposts to them? That is... Whenever you see someone saying that a story or something definitely means one thing, it definitely means this thing, I think it's doing a disservice to the thing itself that you might love. Yeah. I think that you're hurting it.
And then you stopped, and I didn't have anything left to show people. I just had to be with myself. And as soon as that happened, there was no feeling at all. Nothing. Less than nothing. What does that mean?
Would you simply let them be what they are? Let the art be what it is. When I'm around you, I feel physically ill. You desperately need something, and I cannot give it to you. I literally do not have it. Struggling to come up with new ideas is not making me depressed. Low points are just a part of the process. The fact that you think I'm frustrated or broken says more about you than me. That's why also you shouldn't read too much into the so-called intentions of the artist. Like, I think it's also better for us to not do that. I realize this doesn't make sense to you just yet. Which is fine, you're not my problem to solve. But I do hope that one day it clicks and that you make peace with this thing you are wrestling.
I'm afraid that I did something really stupid because I don't like myself.
And when you finally see what I'm talking about, don't say anything. Like, don't contact me.
That's why I'm releasing this collection of your work. Is because I haven't been able to find any other way to reach you. I've tried everything. And so a part of me has hope that if I put this compilation out into the world, and if I put my name on it, that maybe enough people will play it so that it'll find its way to you, so that I can tell you that I'm sorry. I know I screwed up. If I apologize to you truly and deeply, will you start making games again? Please, I need to feel okay with myself again. And I always felt okay as long as I had your work to see myself in. I mean, is something wrong with me? Because I know that I did an awful thing, and I'm doing it again right now. Like, I'm showing people your work, but I can't stop myself from doing it. That's how badly I need to feel something again, like I'm an addict. There has to be something wrong with me. Can I apologize? What if I tell you I was wrong? Will that work? Will that fix it? I don't know. I don't think it will, but there's nothing else that I can do. Just tell me what you want. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please, start making games again. Please help me. Please give me some of whatever it is that makes you complete. I want whatever that wholeness is that you just summoned out of nothing and you put into your work. You were complete in some way that I never was. And I want to know how to be a good person. I want to know how not to hate myself. Please. I'm fading, and all I want is to know that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. So, the epilogue. Which I think in the fiction of the narrative, like, Coda didn't make. He didn't make the lampposts.
More love, more praise, more people telling me that I'm good. Always more. It's like a disease.
Yeah. I'm a writer. I've written a bunch of stuff. Like, self-published a bunch of stuff. And like, I don't get any external validation. I don't sell anything. And like, that's painful. But I will always make art, even if I never sell a single word, because yeah. And I can understand this desire.
Solution.
I can understand this desire for it, but yeah. It is just painful.
I guess if someone had told me ahead of time that he just really enjoyed making prison games, maybe I wouldn't have thought he was so desperate. I wouldn't have told so many people that he was depressed. Maybe he just likes making prisons.
Yeah. That's also the thing about art. Maybe he did just like making prisons. It's that simple. Doesn't need to be anything more. Doesn't need to have some deeper
Even
meaning
now,
behind it.
the disease is telling me to stop. Don't show people what a shitty person you are. They'll hate you.
Yeah, we're all shitty people. It's fine. Found this beautiful too. This landscape. It's ethereal. Beautiful.
If I knew that my life depended on finding something to be driven by other than validation, what would that even be? It's strange, but the thought of not being driven by external validation is unthinkable. Like, I actually cannot conceive of what that would be like.
There's a video by CJ the X, which talks about, at some point, the beginner's guide as well, or Davey Reedon talking about things about your secret contract for why you create things, and saying that there's two reasons that you make things. There's a reason that's like the true reason inside, that deep primal reason, which will be something like, I want people to like me, which isn't a nice reason. And then you give other reasons. You're like, I want to be able to create and bring beauty into the world and blah, 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 blah. These are the things you say. But deep inside, you actually have this gnawing pit inside you. Like, I just feel like I just need to create something. To put something into the world that's worth existing. Because otherwise, what's the point? I just need to make something that's good. which is... I don't know how to tell when it's good necessarily, because I think that... I think I do have more internal validation maybe than Reedon, because Reedon has said he wants people to think that he's clever, and I don't really care about that. I just want the work to speak for itself. Maybe that's a more internal motivation, but it's still... I don't know. But also, of course, who is the arbiter of it? You know, who decides what kind of validation is good or bad? Like,
I think I need to go.
yeah.
And I'm sorry, because I know that I said that I would be here and I would walk you through this, but I'm starting to feel like I have a lot of work to do. I have a lot that I need to make up for. And so I'm just gonna... Okay.
Yeah. I will just say create. You know? Make things. Yourself. For others, who cares? As a song that was about losing. It's quite a beautiful song, actually. It's this is for the people who lose. It was at the Tonys. If you make art at all, you're part of the solution. Like if you make art, you're part of the solution to the world's problems. So just, even if you think your art sucks, continue to make it. And don't deny that it's art, because it is art. A child's doodles put on a fridge is art. A terrible film is art. A game that's just a box is art. So make it. Even if you think it's terrible. It's still worth it. It still means something. It does still mean something. There doesn't have to be some deeper meaning behind it. It's yeah. It's what it is. We're in the station. Obviously, when you're playing it yourself, this would just be quiet. Reader no longer speaking, and that's good. It's once again, the long tunnel with beautiful light at the end. It's always a sight I don't know why, but I have this fixation on light as a thing. And I don't know why, but I figured I've been wanting to replay the beginner's guide, and it's my birthday today, and there's been a lot of hectic personal stuff happening in my life the last few months and years and whatever, and I haven't been able to create in 2 months. When that happens, I try to consume the art that, I try to consume the art that has positively influenced me. And I feel that about this experience, about the beginner's guide. It is inspirational to me, and I find it beautiful. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. It is beautiful. And I hope I can create again soon. But I don't know if I can. That sucks. Can only hope. Can only hope.